Welcome to the Polite Conversations podcast, where every episode is focused on civility, decorum, and good manners. And I'm your lovable, non-controversial host, Ina. If you know me, you know I definitely don't like to ruffle any feathers at all. This is part 2 of a 2-part episode. If you haven't yet checked out part 1, I recommend you check that out first and sign up via patreon.com/nicemangoes for the extended versions of both part 1 and part 2.
I remember some other two mutual people. I won't mention the one guy's name, but one was Annaka, which is this is not personal, but we were still in conversation. Really freaked out because somebody posted that we mutually knew, who was in the show together, just a philosopher, that Israel targets children, and he wrote the word targets children, and she knowing nothing, and again just assuming, like knowing nothing, said no, like they don't do that. Right? Yeah, and she had no basis for that other than that. Well, you know, it's not in their interest. So let me tell you what I came to, and this is my very first
Annaka
essay.
Is Sam Harris's wife. For anyone
Sam Harris's
listening.
wife is a lovely person, but also I think ruled by her fear or whatever. And but let me tell you.
You also
the very
think
first,
Yasmin is an okay person. So
listen, I think I think people are capable of good. I think people are ruled by their fear and their anxiety instead of their love, which is ironic for the meditations that they do. That's people have made that joke a lot about them, and it's true.
Yeah.
But the first essay that I did after all this started, because it's a little different than the language you used about racism. I use the term tribal essentialism is what I really think these people are, like someone like Sam is, or just about everyone you've mentioned. And so tribal essentialism I distinguish from racism, where racism tends to be much more of like an outward facing orientation of like, I don't like black people over there or brown people or whatever.
Well,
and
they're not saying it that way, but they're saying it. If you listen to the entirety of their message.
Let me try to shift it a little for you, because I agree with you, like the outcome is racism, but
no, the intent is racism.
They think things like, well, I have black friends, so I can't be racist. Let me try to put something else out for you, because I think it's slightly different and it's more nefarious, frankly. I'm using the word racism there in kind of like the American History X, very overt, swastika on your chest tattoo kind of way.
Racism is a spectrum, right? So
yeah, but let me try.
You could be a liberal who is racist.
Well, let me try to give you the prejudice spectrum, where the thing that I'm going to name, I think, exists on that spectrum, but in a different way. So I think what it is tribal essentialism, and it's this. It's embodied by that story that I gave you about just a gut reaction right away without any information that like they don't target children, or even the Barry Weiss joke or whatever.
Is Annaka Israeli? Like
no.
Why is she having such a gut reaction to people saying negative things about Israel?
Let me tell you, because I don't even think it's specifically about Israel. So let me tell you, it's tribal essentialism is a position or an attitude. It's an inward-looking one rather than an outward-looking one. And what it is the assumption that your tribe, and we could talk about what your tribe is, because it could be a lot of things, but your tribe, when assessing the behavior of humans, and if someone is in your tribe, you jump over any kind of justifications or reasons for why they might have done what they did that are irrational or ugly or supernatural or just hatred-filled or something like that. You jump over those. You don't even assume them that they could be true, and you immediately go towards a rational reason for what they did, which is collateral damage or a mistake, or their anger just got the best of them, right? Like you dismiss out of hand the possibility that they might have nefarious intentions, like they just wanted to kill Palestinian kids, or they just wanted the land, or God told them to do it, or what. You just don't consider those things.
So it seems to me like you're describing like a broader category of how like people rationalize different bigotries. Like it could be different types of bigotries, right? But racism is within that.
Yeah.
So it's just wider, what you're saying.
I'm saying it's inward looking. It matters who's in your tribe. And when it comes to something like, well, Barry, certainly it's the Zionist tribe, but the tribe of sort of Western values is what I'm saying.
Richard Spencer's tribe.
Yeah, I'm just saying like it's civilization, right? They brought in their tribe to sort of be like the West. Like it's not in our interest to just kill brown kids because we're mad at them. Like, why would we do that, right? It's not in our interest to just like irrationally want the land because like God told us to do it. So you don't consider them. You only consider rational reasoning for your tribe. So when it's like Israel shouldn't target kids, and the word target there is the part that she has a problem with, meaning like that was the intent. They wanted to kill the kid. And it's like, well, no, they might kill kids, but it's always in service. It's collateral damage. It's in service of something rational when it's our side. And let me just point out that this is a way bigger problem than racism. And it's a way bigger problem.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's wider,
but
racism fits within that.
Yeah,
right?
I'm using racism maybe in sort of like a more narrow sense of just like specific bigotries against specific, I don't know, brown people or whatever. But I'm just talking about inward, right? Like why would it be, it's not rational for Israel to just want all of the West Bank because God told them to do it, or that they want the Messiah to come. Like that's not us.
No, but what is the other side of that when they justify that? This is the defensive, why would Israel do that?
Yeah.
But then the other side is, well, Muslims would do this,
right?
Because
so that's because they're not in your tribe. So you're an essentialist about your tribe, and that
is racism.
Well, yeah, it's racism, but the word race is maybe a little off there.
Because we're talking about Muslims. Because I mean, they say the same stuff about BLM, right?
Because an ex-Muslim who's brown or whatever might be in Sam's tribe of civilization.
No, yes.
I'm not talking about.
Yeah. But we understand that Islam is very, like Muslims are very racialized, right, in people's mind. Like it is not a race. Islam is not a race. But to me, there are white Muslims too, kind of talking point just died in 2015 because of how much like racialized hatred I've seen.
I guess I'm saying it in a way of like, actually, one of the interesting points in my collision with Coleman was when he was like, I was trying to kind of lay this out of like getting him to see through his essentialism that Israel, operates in ways that are based on religion sometimes, or based on dominance, or whatever it is. And he was making this point of like, well, why did they leave Egypt? Why did they give the Sinai back after the war in '67? That was an important place to their sort of religious ideology. And yes, there were a few like crazy religious Jews who wanted to keep it, but the thing that he couldn't understand when I was like, well, because Nasser was gone, and they gave the Sinai back as soon as it was, the Suez Canal was back in the sphere's Western influence, because they operate as an outpost of American, colonial experience. Like that's not a hard thing to explain, but like he's pointing to like Sadat in Egypt as like a once in a lifetime leader who was the best thing in the world, who was basically just, a puppet of the West and gave the Suez back, and is a huge reason that you had the Muslim Brotherhood rise up in a reaction very similar to the Shah. It's like the same story in every, Arab country or whatever. But that point is that like Sadat would be in Coleman's tribe there, right? As sort of a Western
because
capitalist
ideology
is way bigger than genetic race. That's the only point I'm putting out there is like.
But you see that in the neo-Nazi level far right too. Like look at the Proud Boys. They have a leader who is not white.
Exactly.
But they are racist, correct?
I mean, maybe we're getting slippery with this term racist, and like I'm not going to be precious about terms, but I just think putting out the.
But what do you mean slippery? No, like I don't mean to be rude or anything. I just want to like clarify.
I'm trying to maybe it's a straw man, but I'm trying to set up the word racism or racist as like the Edward Norton character in American History X wouldn't have black friends, right? Because he just hates black people, and he's like thinks they should be separate.
End.
Yeah.
that is the very end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You're going to find Nazis who won't eat ketchup because it has roots in non-Western lands.
Yeah. Well, if you want to,
right?
say, then yeah. I mean, we're just being whatever pedantic about what the label is.
But there are Nazis who will use Black and brown people to their advantage. The more modern far right is extremely intersectional.
Yeah. I guess I'm just saying. So, like, to use their language, it's like the world that if they could wave a magic wand and get the world they wanted, I think there are racists who would kill every, whatever brown person. And there are people who would wave the wand and kill every jihadist. And that might leave a lot of brown people. And obviously that's a stupid thing. And we could talk about why that's stupid. But I'm just trying to sort of like, you could say it's a spectrum, but maybe the word is just a little unhelpful.
Okay, but then let's say Sam Harris waved that wand and killed every jihadist, but he also has his concentric circle theory where he implies that it's actually not just the jihadists, like there's a whole circle outside that of like conservative Muslims who prop that up. And then, and even in his Israel takes, he very quickly turns from talking about Hamas to just Muslims were using human shields. Yeah. So he has these slips of the tongue where you see that he's very clearly generalizing.
Yeah.
And then I also on Patreon did a post where I went back and looked at his preemptive nuking takes just again. And they were so unhinged, right? Like, you can't say that he just wants to get rid of jihadists because he's very comfortable with a whole lot more than that. And let's say he waved the magic wand of jihadists, but too many people had associations and too many people were just Muslim and the thing wasn't calibrated properly. So just a lot of collateral damage happened and he got rid of all the Muslims. Okay. Then who else is he going to complain about? He's very upset about BLM. He is so angry about any sort of anti-racist action that he started worrying about how being white holds people back and being non-white actually gets people ahead in the workplace. And this is delusional.
Yeah.
Whatever happened in the past decade or so was extremely marginal in the grand scheme of things, but it caused such a backlash amongst the worst people. And then also like the Sam Harris types who helped legitimize this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think
that Trump is now taking action on, right? And there's also immigration. Beyond just Muslims.
He might be a racist. Like I'm just trying to talk more generally. I think you're just getting too hung up on him or things that he said in particular. I'm just trying to talk about sort of the philosophical problem that is much bigger than racism and profiling. Although, that's obviously a problem. I guess so much of my effort, because I just feel like it's hopeless to talk about people, or just to try to get people out of this kind of outward fear that they have, is just to look around at their own tribe and understand that it's capable of hatred and irrational thought or whatever. But my point of it is that that's not just a problem of Sam, who you keep bringing up, or anyone in the West. It's a global problem, right? Like the same exact problem.
Absolutely.
But the same exact problem would exist in the Muslim world, who would always cash out their behavior of, we have rational reasons and all of the violence is actually instrumental and the other people are just hateful or whatever. And it's stupid. We all have to get over it. This is part of the work of being a humanist, is obviously to understand humans.
Those Muslims are not who I would say are good people. The people that are like, well, all the awful things we're doing, the worst of the worst things, if we're talking about in comparison to all the murdering that quote unquote the West is doing, if something like that is comparable to that, anyone justifying that because it's their tribe, even amongst Muslims, that is not a good person. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a complicated thing. So I've been on my show recently, I've been grappling with this question that we're on now, which is really, really morally complicated and fraught, of the relationship between violence and liberation. and how to achieve it. So I'm trying to I've been trying to do this for a year now of talking about Palestine, but broadening the conversation to, a bigger scope, a little bit of sort of globalizing the Intifada intellectually. And so I just did this episode on Malcolm X or whatever, which I think was really good. But, what you're bringing up there is really, really difficult and fraught about violence in the name of or in the sake of something like liberation or resistance. And so,
there's also like actual liberation where people are actually oppressed and they're fighting to be free. And then there's quote unquote liberation, as in the West goes in and says they're bringing democracy.
Yeah, that's
liberating.
I think obviously the world is cracking, and I think it's so actually maybe this is a good point of like, this scares the shit out of people like Sam, right? Like, he's a stability over freedom guy, right? He's a peace over justice guy. And
peace for who?
Let me try to abstractly tell you what I mean by that. If I right now could have some sort of like nano-robot army, and we're probably building this world, and like a massive surveillance system that literally anytime anybody like picked up a gun or a bomb or whatever, they were watched and it was monitored, and they were immediately frozen by some, like, I don't know, nano-robot spraying a paralyzing sort of agent in their face, and they couldn't do the violence they were about to do. That world, just on some sort of measurable, like, violent deaths, is zero, right? Like, I just gave you a totally crazy science fiction story.
When they're frozen?
Let's just say they're paralyzed, and then they also get sort of like an agent that changes their mind and turns them into, like, let's even do a nice thing, turns them into, whatever, some peaceful monk or whatever.
Oh gosh, but this is all like non-consensually injecting something into their brain. That's violence.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, thank you for ruining my thought experiment, but you already hit the punchline. But so that world, by some abstract measure of like Steven Pinker's graphs or whatever, violent deaths go down to zero, right? And that world, and this is honestly the bigger conversation that we need to have. Because this is like, while all the violence in the world is happening in such spectacularly ugly, awful fashion, and we're all in the streets doing it, the Palantir shit and all the surveillance shit is really frightening. Because the world that dystopia, you recognize it obviously as a dystopia. Someone like Sam says that's a peaceful world, and he would take that world and maybe even call it freedom, because he'd be like, well, what kind of, you're turning them into a monk, I guess this sounds good or whatever. People will take that world as peace rather than whatever. And of course, the world I just described to you, that toy universe, is a massively unjust and inhumane world. You could talk about consent or whatever. You could talk about denying the existential sort of like struggle to ask different questions.
Individual level of non-peace you would feel. I mean, maybe the people in control of all this, they would feel peace.
Right, because
who was it that recently said it? Was it the Oracle guy? He said, well, people will be on their best behavior.
Exactly.
We'll be watching them all the time.
Exactly, right. So it's
good for him.
Yeah.
It's good for him because he's the one watching.
Yeah.
But he's not being watched.
And so the real good philosophical conversations, the ones that the best philosophers have, political philosophers, are about what freedom and liberation really means. And then the best kind of practical philosophers in that, space talk about how we achieve it. And I'm talking on individual levels and collective levels. I'm talking like the individual journey of everyone trying to figure out what integrity and freedom and authenticity of a human life is in these really existential questions, which is the human condition. And, I've also had recent conversations on my show with, and I'll count myself in this, that are more anarchistic, of like, seeking national sovereignty as the end-all be-all of liberation is really kind of a false horizon. And we should remember that, even if maybe in the best case scenario, it's a temporary state that then, we need in order just to stop a genocide or whatever. And then we go from there. But, so that's what I mean by peace over justice, peace over freedom, peace over liberation.
I'm sorry, but we got sidetracked when you were talking about Annaka, who got panicked, and that's the story you were telling. I didn't mean to derail so much.
No. I think it was really, really good. I mean, I think that's really the thing, because that's pointing to, again, that tribal essentialism of that we, do we have, and I'm talking in the West, have some sort of monopoly on some beautiful vision of liberty or peace or whatever, or justice or dignity? Absolutely not. And
yeah, that's been made very clear.
That's been made very clear. Yeah, so I was talking about how the world has cracked open and the hypocrisy of the West. And this has always been, what I just said there is kind of the project of even some Islamists or even jihadists like Osama bin Laden, let alone their rhetoric about the afterlife and supernatural justifications.
Well, yeah, they're like, we're the most moral Western decadents, blah, blah, blah. Don't watch their TV shows, don't wear their clothes. I have always loathed that.
Yeah.
But I have been able to be consistent and loathe when it happens here also.
Yeah, yeah.
But I see so many people are not able to do that, and it drives me nuts. And this is also why I'm not able to relate to the level of like indoctrination that you were talking about when it comes to Zionism.
Please subscribe via patreon.com/nice mangoes to access the extended episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support it, there are several ways you can do that. You can share it online, talk about what you just heard. You can leave a 5-star review to help others find it too. And you can also subscribe via patreon.com/nice mangoes. No E in mangoes. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter before it's completely wrecked, you'll find me at Nice Mangoes. Again, no E in mangoes.